Governor Ed Rendell of Pennsylvania, former chairman of the Democratic National Committee, by contrast, has said the Tea Partiers are, you ready for this, a small group of angry people that the media pays too much attention to. Governor Rendell, do you stand by that after the string of victories in the primaries earlier this week?
Well, again, what I said is the Tea Party movement, the people who officially call themselves Tea Partiers, are small in number. And you can tell that by the pathetic turnout at rallies they hold in Washington to protest the health care bill, Judge. They got 1,000 people to protest the health care bill. I could get 100,000 people to demonstrate for stronger laws to protect dogs. But the movement is real in that people are angry and people are fed up with a lot of things that are going on in Washington. That's natural. When people lose their homes, their jobs, their 401ks, of course they're going to be angry.
You're a very sensible, rational guy. I think you're a centrist on the Democratic Party. You must recognize, Governor Rendell, and disagree with me if you want, that at some point, enough is enough. There's enough of government. There's too much of government. There's too much regulation. There's too much favoritism of the Wall Street over Main Street, however you want to call it. And that anger has animated these folks.
Right. But again, people who are angry don't automatically fall into the Tea Party. Scott Brown didn't win election in Massachusetts because of the Tea Party. But your point is well taken. But like everything else, I think we need a balance. So you say there's no regulation of Wall Street, and I agree. And people who would call themselves Tea Partiers want stronger government regulation in Washington. But some in the movement want to protect Wall Street. Governor Palin said it absolutely right. Something she just said on your show.
Right.
She said we should regulate the oil companies much more closely, much better than MMS did. And she's right. So there's good regulation and bad regulation, government regulation. Just like there is good government spending and there's wasteful government spending.
Aren't we in danger
and the key for us is to...
with too much regulation of the economy, with too much central planning of the economy, aren't we in danger of taking the word free out of free market? And we have stood for the free market for 230 years.
Absolutely, and you've got to draw the line correctly. But a free market economy doesn't mean that you let Wall Street go with no rules and no regulation, because we saw the consequences, devastating consequences to this country for the last 2 years when we had no regulation. A free market economy doesn't mean you let oil companies drill with no supervision and no regulation and no oversight. We've seen that literally destroy several Gulf states.
A free market would mean that the oil companies are responsible for the damage that they do. They don't have an artificial liability cap on their damages.
And I agree, that's a ridiculous cap. And what's going to happen if BP goes bankrupt? A lot of those people are never going to be made whole.
I'm determined to find some common ground between you and the Tea Partiers. Should the federal government... Should the federal government be able to hack into people's emails or look at their bank accounts or their medical records without a search warrant from a judge?
Of course not. And I absolutely agree with Congressman Paul on that. But the problem for libertarians and the movement, and that's what your show is going at, look at the question, the answer that Congressman Paul gave on abortion. He sort of straddled it and said, well, but if you're a true libertarian, the government has no place telling a woman what she can or cannot do with her own body. That's the true libertarian position. But I'd say 95% of the Tea Partiers are strongly pro-life and want abortion to be outlawed in this country.
You once said that as the governor of Pennsylvania, you would sign into law legislation authorizing medical marijuana. That's a big deal with libertarians. Did I find some other common ground between Governor Rendell, the Democrat of Pennsylvania, and the National Tea Party movement?
Oh, absolutely. What Rand Paul said is something that I feel very much as a citizen, that the war has dragged on too long, that we can't afford the war, that we've got to take a look at bringing our troops home more swiftly. And he's right. I don't think we can be the world's policeman everywhere. So look, there are things that we'd agree with, but take a look at the movement itself. Conservatives, right-wingers in this country, they wanted to ramp up troop deployment in Afghanistan.
Right.
They thought the Iraq War was the right thing to do. Now you have the libertarians and a lot of the Tea Party are saying, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Were you surprised when Governor Palin endorsed Rand Paul against the establishment Republican in Kentucky?
No, I've known Sarah Palin since she became governor of Alaska. I was governor of Pennsylvania. And the one thing you can say about Sarah without any fear of contradiction, she has a lot of guts and a lot of courage, and she does what she thinks is right.
Governor Rendell, you're going to be present at the next Tea Party rally, whether it's here or elsewhere. Thanks for joining us. Meet members of Congress who actually agree with our Tea Partiers. Our Freedom Fighter panel includes Senator Jim DeMint, Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, former Congressman and Republican Majority Leader Dick Armey. Next. This is Freedom Watch, and on our panel of freedom fighters are South Carolina Senator Jim DeMint, Minnesota Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, and former Texas Congressman Dick Armey, who now co-chairs the Tea Party-affiliated group Freedom Works. Ooh, I like that. Freedom Watch, Freedom Works. Senator DeMint, you're one of a handful of office holders who've signed on to something called the Contract from America, a pledge to reduce the size of government. Do you think most candidates who reach out to the Tea Party movement will sign that pledge and will stick to it, or will just use it as a means to get elected?
Well, Judge, congratulations on your new show. The name says it all to me. Americans have to watch for freedom because we're going the opposite way right now. What we need to realize about the Tea Party movement, Judge, is for every person who calls themselves a Tea Partier who comes to a rally, there are 1,000 Americans who feel the same way, who are just too busy with life to come out and get involved with the political aspects of this. But they're going to vote in November, and we're going to find out how real the Tea Parties really are in November. We're already seeing in a lot of primaries that the fervor is still there. And I think that's the great hope for America right now, is that the American citizenry is standing up, speaking out, they're getting more informed, and they're throwing the bums out. And I think that's really what has to happen this November.
Congresswoman Bachmann, were you surprised when Governor Palin, who's known for her staunch traditional social conservative views, reached out, took on the Republican establishment, and endorsed the libertarian Rand Paul, who was victorious by a huge number in the Kentucky Republican Senate primary?
I wasn't, Judge, because Sarah Palin knows a winner. And Sarah Palin was, I think, very astute in her choice of Rand Paul in Kentucky, and it's proved to be providential, I think. I think he'll do very well, and I think he'll go on to win that Senate seat.
Congressman Armey, you know I love the Tea Parties. That's why you guys are here. Here's the criticism that I hear. This is going to divide the Republicans. This is going to make it easier for the Democrats to win, because there are big tent Republicans who reject the values of Barry Goldwater. How do you reply to that kind of a criticism?
Well, anybody that wants to win an election this year that rejects the values of small government, constitutionally limited government, conservatism, individual liberty, fiscal responsibility is going to lose an election. And this movement's about the great ideas that have made America great. Barry Goldwater happened to have held them. It's not about personalities. If you think you can simplify this into some sort of nitwitted contest between competing personalities, you're going to, of course, miss the point altogether.
Senator,
but the fact of the matter is, when you talk about the majority concern of the American people with what might be happening to our country, where could we be going wrong? How might we lose it? The Tea Party movement stands smack in the middle of American politics. What I see is the Tea Party movement bringing the Republicans to that central core set of concerns and beliefs about fiscal soundness, personal liberty, and responsible restraint of government, and the Democrat Party, as you saw in Arkansas, shoving their people off the left cliff and abusing them if they don't run down the left sideline. So the fact of the matter is, we're at the center of things. The Democrats are at the left side of things. The Republicans, if they make a good symbiotic relationship with the Tea Party movement, can take the majority in both the House and the Senate.